SmartB Sports Update Podcast is brought to you by Optimum CBD. For all your rest and recovery needs, CBD products are your best bet. Go to OptimumCBD.store to order now. Free delivery on all orders over $99. You must be over 18 to order. I use Optimum CBD products personally for my rest and recovery. I train 6 days a week in Jiu-Jitsu, as you've probably heard on the SmartB Sports Update Podcast. I teach, I train, I compete. And without Optimum CBD products, I wouldn't be able to do it. Optimum CBD for all your rest and recovery needs. I remember an interview with Wayne Bennett a few years ago, who has been coaching, I think, 50 years now.
Yeah, a long time. And
he highlighted that he actually, because somebody asked him about what's it like training the new generation or whatever generation of new people. Mm-hmm. It might have been when he first started at the Dragons or at the Rabbitohs or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, actually, it's like a myth that every generation is different. Mm. What he has found over the past 50 years is I'm not quoting him verbatim, but the gist of it was, every generation that has come in has been exactly the same as the last generation. And so he doesn't change his coaching methods and coaching style and stuff like that. And you can see through his success how that is effective. Mm. Like what he's talking about is how he treats the people, not necessarily the coaching methods of passing and weights and sports science and stuff, but how he treats the people, because all young people for the past 50 years coming through have actually just been the same. But yeah, they all want to believe that they're different, but they're all actually the same. Like 20-year-olds are 20-year-olds, and then in 10 years, the 20-year-olds will be the same as the 20-year-olds are like 10 years ago. Yeah. They just want to believe that they're super different. And, I think it's highlighted. My sister is a high school teacher. I've had this conversation with her before, and I used to make fun of my oldest son about it. They're incapable of using search properly. Right? I've had so many conversations with like 20-year-olds where I've said to them, just look it up on Google, and they've come back to me and said, and I'm not talking about like 20-year-olds yesterday, I'm talking about over the past 10 years, every 20-year-old. And they said, oh, it's not there. And then I've just done a simple search and found it. Because youth believe access to information is knowledge of that information. Mm. So kids today, and adults today as well, kids, have potential access to more information than has ever been had ever in the history of the world. Right? But that doesn't mean you know that information. Mm. But young people believe, it doesn't matter when, now, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when I was 20, I believed the same thing, believe that because they have access to information, they know that information and are therefore in a superior position to the people from 10 years ago. Mm. But in reality, they're not. They have to know that information. Yeah.
Yeah, people are all the same. Yeah. They're just born later. That's the only difference.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. Like, they're just born later. They're the same. Speaking of people, Ricky Stuart's in the news today.
Yes.
Yesterday.
Yes.
It's still going on. Who was the coach of the Indigenous team?
The Maori team?
No. Because today there was a news paper article from the coach of the Indigenous team about this. So Adam Blair.
Adam Blair is the coach of the Maori All-Stars.
And he highlighted that a lot of players from Canberra were basically told they can't play.
Ron Griffiths was the coach of the Indigenous team.
He has quotes from today in reference to this, in full support of Adam Blair. So Adam Blair said he knows or has knowledge of that, again, not quoting verbatim, that players from Canberra, Maori players from Canberra, were basically given the, no, don't go and play. And Ricky Stuart's come out with, like, instead of, saying, no, that didn't happen, and, Adam might be confused, we can talk about it. He's come out with personal attacks, the Ricky Stuart playbook.
Yeah, I can read you the verbatim quote, if you like, from Adam Blair. So this is all Adam Blair said. He said, and I quote, "There's so many talented players that could have been here, but due to pressures, for example, I love our Canberra boys, and we could have taken 5 or 6 of them and put them in our squad. But I get it, those are 5 of Canberra's best players," end quote. So it's not the most provocative quote, really. He's just mentioned that we could have maybe had 5 or 6 of the Canberra boys in our team, but I get it that they're 5 of Canberra's best players. Hardly provocative. Ricky Stuart's just absolutely given him both barrels in reply to that, and these are Ricky Stuart's quotes. He says, and I quote, "It was ridiculous, it was a childish comment. It comes from a very inexperienced coach. He's obviously coaching the way he used to play, very selfishly. Talk about getting personal.
Oh my God, man.
And then he continues on, Stuart. He says, for Blair to come out and say that when he didn't even communicate with this club is wrong. It comes from an inexperienced person who is trying to coach. This proud club does more for our Maori, Pacifica and Indigenous players than Adam Blair would ever do and will ever know of. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, Adam Blair never does anything for the Maoris. Don't you know this? Adam Blair never does anything. Just coaches the Maori team. It's like, okay, you notice Ricky Stuart didn't address it, right? He didn't actually address it. He just attacked Adam Blair.
He just attacked Adam Blair personally. And isn't it funny how Ricky Stuart says that Adam Blair is coaching the way that he used to play? Because Ricky Stuart doesn't coach the way he used to play. He was a great player, but he's a terrible coach. Yeah. So Ricky Stuart doesn't coach the way he used to play. So it's kind of funny how he says that Adam Blair coaches the exact same way as he used to play. And then it's funny how he also says, he's talking about Adam Blair, that quote I read out. He says, it comes from an inexperienced person who is trying to coach. Well, I mean, being an inexperienced person who is trying to coach, that doesn't mean you're a bad coach. Look at Ricky Stuart. He's very experienced, but he's a terrible coach. Yeah. He hasn't won a premiership since 2002 as a coach. He's going into his 12th season at the Canberra Raiders as coach, and he hasn't won a premiership yet.
Well, he's got 5 more years.
Oh, yeah. He's got plenty of time. But isn't that funny how he's having a go at Adam Blair's inexperience when he's experienced, but look at his terrible record as a coach.
You see, Ron Griffiths come out today and said, I stand with Adam Blair on this issue. He's been personally attacked. Adam has acted honourably and with good character. I support Adam's sentiment in terms of players being available. We got some world-class elite players that the fans want to see, and there's no doubt that clubs are holding players back. I've got examples of text messages from players where they've been told they can't play. I've got also got examples where the club hasn't informed the player that they are going to be selected. The club has just said to us, no, they are not playing. That's just the reality of the situation. What Adam has come out and said, I support, we stand together on this. And I don't care what Ricky Stuart says. Again, I don't think he addressed it at all. No. I didn't address the accusation. Instead, he did the straw man argument of attacking Adam Blair's playing days, how much Canberra does for the Indigenous and Maoris.
How personal is that? Going back to his playing days. What a nasty thing to say from Ricky Stuart.
We know. Everybody knows. In the media, in the fan base, in the players, in the coaching ranks, everybody knows that clubs do hold players back from games like this. And we discussed it at length, how it's become an exhibition. It's a great shame that this kind of happens. And I fully believe that probably happened, that Adam Blair wanted to pick some of the Canberra people and they were told no. And I like Ron Griffiths' statement, I've got text messages. These receipts can come out.
And the thing is, I wouldn't have even cared. If Ricky Stuart didn't say anything about this, I wouldn't have cared. I wouldn't have cared if the Raiders left 5 or 6 players out of it because they're more worried about the season. I wouldn't have blamed them for that. My issue is with how personal he's gotten with his attacks on Adam Blair. When, it feels like Adam Blair's hit Ricky Stuart with a feather, and in retaliation, it's like Ricky Stuart's hit him with a baseball bat.
Yeah, there was no need for it. It was just,
Ricky Stuart hasn't won a premiership for 23 years as coach. As I said, 2002, that was his only premiership as a coach. That's where I laugh, where he has a go at Adam Blair's inexperience. Because, Ricky Stuart's experienced as a coach, but it's bad experience. He's going into his 12th season at the Raiders as coach, and he hasn't won a premiership there. And I know no one else in the media will ever call him out for anything, but don't worry, we'll keep doing it on this podcast. We'll keep holding him to account. Nobody else will, but we will keep doing it throughout the season this year.
Who actually won, anyway?
Yeah, well, there you go. Adam Blair coached the Maori team to a 10-6 win, so he's doing a good job as coach.
Well, if they won.
Yeah.
That's all Adam Blair has to coach. Like, he's probably, I guess he's doing better than Ricky Stuart at this point, 'cause he's won a competition. Even if it's only one match, he still won the competition.
Hey,
right?
yeah, he coaches one game a year and he won it.
Yeah, so he's got the... I wonder what his success rate is. Let's check it out.
I think they lost last year and he started last year, so I think he's one win, one loss, but, he had a win the other night.
Yeah, played 2, won 50%. I think Ricky Stewart's win percentage is less than that, though, so... we can only go off the statistics we have.
Yeah, of course.
His club winning percentage is also 50%, so he's equally as good as Adam Blair.
Yeah, and he's a lot less experienced.
Yeah, so Ricky, I just think Ricky Stuart was way out of pocket there as usual. But I think the main thing is he did the straw man. He misdirected the statement that Adam Blair was making.
Yeah, and he can't attack the credentials of other coaches. He's in no position to be doing that with his terrible record as coach that's gone on for decades now.
Exactly. In that match, we discussed that a little bit last week when Mitchell Pearce was here, but Kalyn Ponga played for the Maoris.
Yeah.
After his after his test snub. But he didn't snub the test, remember? He said he'd play. And Mark Carroll, the great Mark Carroll, has had some words to say about it, I think quite fairly. I don't know what's going on with their test matches aren't... See, this has become really, really weird now, right? Kalyn Ponga, so the Indigenous All-Stars versus Maori has these players that pull out or their club pulls them out of, or... the club, according to Ron Griffith, the club doesn't even tell the player that they're selected and stuff like that. And Kalyn Ponga is the opposite. He goes out of his way to play for the Maori All-Stars and wanted to pull out of the test matches. And so that's why I think Mark Carroll has had some words, really. Like, that's the motivation about Kalyn Ponga over his test snub.
Yeah, well, you talk about the words that he's had. I'll tell you what, they're very strong quotes from Mark Carroll. I'll just go through them. So Mark Carroll says, and I quote, "Kalyn Ponga, I'm looking right at you, buddy. While I'll support anyone representing their people and culture, if Ponga's main focus is the Knights, why is he playing in this All-Stars match? That's the question Newcastle, not to mention Meninga, must be asking themselves. You don't pick and choose your representative games. You're either all in or it's piss off for good."
Yeah, well, I think what we've established is they do pick and choose their games, and that's one of the big problems. Like,
yeah, I mean, I get where Mark Carroll's coming from here. I mean, if Kalyn Ponga just wants to focus on the Knights, that's fine, that's his choice. But then don't go and play in an exhibition game that's far more meaningless. Well, a test match is very meaningful. An exhibition game like this is just meaningless.
Well, it was. I just made fun of it how Adam Blair won his competition more recently than Ricky Stewart's won a competition.
Yeah.
But the Pacific Championship was an actual competition that Kalyn Ponga could have played in.
Yeah.
They had a competition, multi-test competition to win to win a trophy that Australia had been smashed in the year before, right? So when you look at the hierarchy of importance, Kalyn Ponga coming out and saying he'd withdrawn from Australia even though he wasn't allowed to, and then coming out and saying, "No, I didn't say go get a job, Paul Keating," is way worse than the players that are pulling out of the Indigenous All-Stars. And look, I think it's really time they did something about this altogether. They have rules, but the rules are bent so much, and I've discussed at length, the City Country was actually my favourite rep fixture, and it got ruined by this exact kind of stuff. Indigenous All-Stars versus the Maori All-Stars is on its way to being ruined by this kind of stuff. You would hope that State of Origin and Australian tests don't go down this route. How long will it be before they shut down the Indigenous All-Stars because all the players pulled out anyway, and then coaches start leaning on their players to say, "Look, man, don't play Origin. We don't want to have that Origin hangover," that kind of thing.
Well, that's right. And if you're Mal Meninga as the Australian coach and you're looking at this, so Kalyn Ponga's lined up for the New Zealand Maori team, but he's declared himself unavailable for the Australian Test side, you just look at it and go, well, you don't want to play for Australia. You're more interested in playing for New Zealand Maori, so we're not going to select you for Australia again. And I really think Kalyn Ponga didn't think thoroughly about the ramifications of his decision to pull out of the Australian Test side. I think he had a moment where he thought, oh yeah, I'm going to bail on this. I'm not really interested in this at the moment. I want to focus on the Knights, but I don't think he thought about the long-term ramifications for his career and his reputation here. And the problem is that this is following him now. The decision to pull out of the Australian side, well, that happened in October, November last year. And now we're nearly into the new season. We're in late February now, and people like Mark Spud Carroll are calling him out for, making himself available for the All-Stars game after he made himself unavailable for the Test side. So I really think Kalyn Ponga didn't properly consider the consequences of that decision to pull out of Kangaroo selection last year.
Yeah, 100%. We'll have to see what happens with Kalyn Ponga, right? Like what are they got this year? Is there a World Cup? The Australian?
No, the World Cup is at the end of next year. I'm pretty sure the next World Cup is 2026.
So
I think it was going to be in 2025, but it's been moved to 2026. Yeah.
Hmm. So we'll have to see what they do with Kalyn Ponga, but I think it's a bit rich that he went and played for the Maori All-Stars after being unavailable for the...
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple. You just look at it and go, well, you've made yourself available for the New Zealand Maori side. That's fine, but you made yourself unavailable for Australia last year, so we'll just take away from that you've got no interest in playing for Australia, so you're not getting picked for Australia again.
I'm guessing that he probably qualifies for New Zealand then, right?
Well, yeah, that's where it gets complicated, doesn't it? That's it is a strange one. Like, he's eligible to play for Australia last year, makes himself unavailable, but he's also eligible to play for New Zealand Maori in the All Stars game this year. It's very sort of relaxed eligibility rules.
There's something about like lower tier nations and all that, whatever, blah, blah. But
there'd be some he would have qualified in some way.
He wants to play for Queensland but doesn't want to play for Australia. They should just also ban him from Queensland and go play for New Zealand.
Look, it wouldn't have been... Had he not gone through that whole drama last year of making himself unavailable for Australia, it wouldn't have been an issue. Let's say he didn't do that and he got picked for Australia last year. I don't think anyone would have cared that he played for New Zealand Maori as well, because, as we say, it's just an exhibition game. It's not a big deal. But it's the fact that he pulled out of Australian selection last year. That's what's made it such a big issue. The fact that he's gone and played for New Zealand. Yeah. New Zealand Maori.
Exactly.
And if he had his time over again, I highly doubt that he would have made himself unavailable for Australia last year, because it's certainly following him everywhere he goes, that decision.
It's weird. We'll have to see what happens. I wonder if he'll play for Queensland. There's been a few, over in the AFL, there's been tons of injuries in the pre-season trials and at training, right? I think St Kilda is currently in a massive injury crisis right now with like 5 or 6 of their top players. I see the news about it on SmartB every day, like top players like ruled out for extended periods. But day before yesterday,
I think it was yesterday morning, yeah.
Both Cam Murray and Latrell Mitchell went down at South training, and Cam Murray has now been ruled out for months. Yeah. There's a great video circulating on the TAB, which is on the TAB podcast. Laurie Daly's on it, and they find out live. And their reaction, like Laurie Daly's face just like drops, because obviously Cam Murray is going to be a big part of his origin side, and he really you can see the visible shock and awe on his face.
Well, this is why you always keep your options open as a state of origin coach, because we haven't even started the regular season and we've already got certainly I mean, Latrell Mitchell's injury doesn't sound that serious, but Cameron Murray, well, it sounds like he may not even play for the whole season.
He's ruptured his Achilles.
Suffered a suspected torn Achilles tendon. Yep, Cam Murray, while Latrell Mitchell is ruled out of South Sydney's Charity Shield clash with your Dragons due to a hamstring injury. Look, Murray battled hip and wrist injuries last season, so facing months on the sidelines, could be the whole season, certainly looking highly doubtful for that Origin series. It's no wonder why Laurie Daly went red-faced on that vision you're talking about.
A low-grade rupture on the Achilles is 4 to 6 months. Like a low-grade rupture.
Yeah.
And it's been confirmed he's ruptured his Achilles. So that's before returning to low-impact training. Because obviously your Achilles is in your ankle and you need it to run. Yeah. So he could be out very much for the entire year. A high-grade rupture is 1 whole year before you return to any physical activity. Yeah. So that could mean the whole year plus the beginning of this next year.
That's right. It's a serious blow. And just on Latrell Mitchell, I know he can't help getting injured. Nobody can, and it's a blow for him. Although his injury is not as serious, it is a hamstring. But he's on a reported $1.1 million a year salary. I mean, the thing is, he can't help the injuries. I get that. But Souths haven't got $1.1 million of value per season, value out of him for a while. That's the thing. The injuries on their own, you go, well, he can't help that, right? But you put the injuries with all the other dramas around Latrell, and he's probably, certainly in the early stages of our podcast, he's been the most talked about person on our podcast. There have been periods every week where there was a new Latrell Mitchell drama. What's he done this week? And so that's the thing. The injuries on their own, you go, well, the player can't help that. But you put them on top of all the other dramas, and you go, well, the reality is that he's on a reported $1.1 million a year salary, and South Sydney have not got $1.1 million a year worth of value out of him for a long time now.
Yeah, and there's this great stat on the Sydney Morning Herald website about it, right? So, they also have Cody Walker out.
Yeah,
so they've got over $2 million on the sideline.
Yeah, and now. Campbell Graham as well has got a hand injury too.
So the win percentage without Murray for South is 47.2. The win percentage without Mitchell is 42%. And the win percentage without both is only 40%. So they're pretty pivotal to the team when you have Latrell Mitchell fit and playing properly, Latrell Mitchell and Cam Murray on the field together. Without them, when they're both off, it's 40% win rate only. And we know you can't get to the finals with a 40% win rate. You have to have more than 50% win rate, to get to the finals. Even just without, so Latrell will probably be back round 1 or 2. Murray's out at least until after the Origin period. So it's at least until after July and possibly the whole year. They only sit at 47.2% win rate without him. So it's a major blow for Wayne Bennett, trying to return to the finals after 2 years of no finals at the Dolphins, trying to come and fix the Rabbitohs that were so broken. It's a massive, massive blow. That's
right. And you mentioned how broken the Rabbitohs have been. We might remember 2023 when they were on top of the ladder. I think it was after 11 rounds, and then somehow they fell apart and missed the 8 from that position. I think they finished 9th that year. And then last year they came second last. So with Wayne Bennett going there, they really needed to get off to a good start. They needed no dramas like this, certainly not. They needed everything to be going their way. They needed to get off to a good start. They needed to send a positive message to their members and their fans that they're back, that they've had a rough couple of years, but, they're back where they belong up the top of the ladder. But, this is just not what the doctor ordered at all for South Sydney, coming off a poor couple of years. And now we've got 2 very high-profile injury concerns going into the 2025 season.
They reckon that Campbell Graham may be back against the Dolphins, which pretty much means he won't be.
Is that... what like later
That's first round.
Right. Sorry, I think you mean Latrell, don't you?
No, Campbell Graham.
Sorry. Sorry, you're not talking about Cam Murray. Sorry, you're talking about Campbell Graham.
So right now, so they have...
Sorry.
What's his name? Walker, Latrell, Campbell Graham...
Cam Murray.
And also, what's that other guy? I just had his name here. Tavita Totola off.
Yeah.
Right? They reckon Campbell Graham may be back against the Dolphins in round 1, so we'll have had no pre-season.
Yeah.
Totola won't be back until round 6 or 7. Latrell may be back against the Dolphins. They don't know yet. They won't know until today. They're getting the scans. Cam Murray is at least out until
the Cam Murray blow is the big one because there's a good chance that they might not see him all season. So the others are all coming back, relatively soon. So they're probably not going to have a huge impact on them. You'd hope not. But the Cam Murray one is the big one for him to possibly be out for the whole season this year. That's a huge blow.
You have to have the thought that they probably won't start the season well with all these guys coming back from injury and having had no preseason.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's a very disrupted start, and often that can be enough to really derail you in the early stages, and you can sort of find yourself only winning one of your first 5 or 6 games. And you're really starting behind the 8 ball. And as I say, for a team that's had the struggles they've had for the last couple of years, you can't afford to start like that.
Sucks to be Wayne Bennett. Mm-hmm. Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Let's see how the Dolphins go, and then we'll decide whether it's calmer or not. Still on Wayne Bennett.
Mind you, I agree with what he did here, though. Wayne Bennett hanging up on Matt Lodge.
On Wayne Bennett. So... Matt Lodge has been wandering around trying to find a contract. No one wants him.
No.
And he tried to get a contract with Wayne Bennett, and Wayne Bennett just hung up the phone on him.
Yeah, these are the quotes from Matt Lodge. He says, I had sat out of this pre-season because I had conversations. I thought it was 99% over the line. He's talking about the deal with Souths. And then he says, and I got told to tell my family I would be at Souths. Then he says, then I just had a quick call saying it's not happening, and he hung up. Bennett said nothing was agreed to. But I don't blame Wayne Bennett for hanging up on him. I would have hung up on him as well. This is somebody who committed a violent home invasion. He... that was in New York a number of years ago. I think a woman was forced to protect her 9-year-old child as Lodge repeatedly tried to bash down the door during this home invasion. So I wouldn't want a player at my club who's committed a home invasion like that and I guess intimidated a 9-year-old child like that. And so good on Wayne Bennett for hanging the phone up on him. I would have done the same thing.
To most people, Matt Lodge is being redeemed, not so much to me, but it's irrelevant because I don't think any club would want him with the behaviour that's happened since his contract. He was offered, we've talked about him a few times in the off-season. He was offered to get a chance to go to Manly, to stay at, he's at Manly, he was at Manly?
He was, yeah.
Offered a chance to stay at Manly, wouldn't take it, thought he was better than that.
Yeah. The Dragons.
Then the Dragons offered a training and trial. He said, no, I want a contract. They said, too bad. Then he's off to South, and probably, based on history, my assumption would be he asked for too much, and Wayne Bennett said, not worth it, bro. Like, it's not happening. But
and I think there was an issue as well with, I think Bennett was saying that there were some players that they wanted to move on South, but they just weren't able to move them on, and that's the nature of the salary cap. Sometimes you have to hang on to certain players for longer than you really would want to, and so that they couldn't move those players on, so they couldn't set up the room for Matt Lodge. But like you said, he's had his chances to remain in the NRL. He knocked back a deal from Manly, knocked back a train and trial deal with the Dragons, as we've talked about. So, he's had his options to stay. And as I said, we talked about him a few weeks ago. As I said at that time, this is not a player who's in a position to be, making certain demands of clubs.
Exactly.
With his past, he's just got to take whatever's offered to him and cop it.
Exactly.
And he hasn't done that. And, this is yet another club that we can tick off as where he hasn't come to an agreement
now
with.
He's going to work 3 days a week at construction and play in the New South Wales Cup. That's what he's.
And that's
and
the
this
thing.
is a guy that had a contract offer at Manly.
Yeah, wouldn't it have been better to either go to Manly or take that $1,200 a week deal with St George?
No, he wanted more money from Manly, so they said no. Went to the Dragons and wanted a full contract. They said no. So that's it. Now you're in the New South Wales Cup. Oh, well. Trials have been in full swing, though.
Yes.
There's a pre-season challenge thing.
Yeah, this isn't based on any news story. This is just my my little item here.
But we had this conversation last year, and we agreed then that things like the Captain's Challenge, the replays, the full swing of the NRL really shouldn't be in effect during trials. It's bad enough that they're like, they name 28,000 players and have unlimited interchanges and stuff like that. The games are, it's good they televise them now. I don't watch them because I cancelled KO. But it's good they televise them all now instead of just the Charity Shield. But in reality, look, I think you can tell from the attendances, where there's only like 15 people at the Sydney-based games. We don't want the full experience because we're not getting the full experience anyway.
Well, that's right, and I just don't understand why in pre-season trials do we need to be holding the game up for captain's challenges, for bunker decisions? We've still got this try confirm nonsense in trial games. It's a trial game, okay, nobody cares about the result. The referee can just give the decision. There's not going to be a big outrage in the paper on Monday morning if the referee gets a decision wrong in a trial game. Nobody cares enough about the result. So we've had enough. I mean, Wayne Bennett, we're talking about Wayne Bennett again here, but he even said towards the end of last year, he said we should just get rid of the bunker altogether. And I would have thought that this presents the perfect opportunity to experiment with what that would be like, because there's no ramifications to getting decisions wrong in pre-season games because no one cares about the results. People who are watching it might just want to watch how certain players go, certain fringe players go. Yep. You might, to be honest, these games, you only really watch your own team play. You're not going to watch other teams play. You're just having a look at your own team in the pre-season. But you're not getting hung up about the result at the end or anything. So I
don't even know what any of the results are.
Well, that's the thing. So, but this just presented a perfect opportunity. A number of high-profile people have said, the game would be better off without the bunker, without all the interruptions. I think Matty Johns has been known to say it in the past as well. So this presents a perfect opportunity to have a look at what it would be like without the bunker, without the Captain's Challenge. And, obviously, I think they should get rid of it altogether. I've had that opinion for a while now. But
I agree.
They don't have to then just go and do that straight away in the NRL regular season. I don't think they would have the guts to do it either, to be honest. But why not at least have a look at it in the pre-season trials? Why in a trial game are we holding the game up for 5 minutes going, there's a Captain's Challenge? In the 78th minute of trial games, we're stopping the clock. Captain's Challenge here. Or, let's hold this up and have 15 looks at a bunker decision and let's hold off on try confirmed when this is just a trial game.
Yeah, have you seen the crowds in the Sydney stadiums? This is the other thing about that.
And that was the thing. Corey Parker was saying, we should move these games into the regional areas.
Yeah, some of the regional trials that have happened have had like 7,000 and 10,000 people there. Yep. But seriously, the games at Sydney stadiums, I think there was a game at Canberra. I don't know. I saw, what's it called, photos. It looked like there was 15 people in the crowd. I don't know. It might have... I don't know which game it was, but honestly, it looked like there was 15 people in the crowd. But yeah, they've had like 7,000 at some regional games and stuff like that. Dragons pumped the Roosters. Kyle Flanagan, man of the match.
I think the Bulldogs had a win over the West Tigers too.
Yeah,
I did watch
close
that game.
win. It was what was it, 20 to 14?
Benji
Marshall put the boots on. Show them how to score.
I thought it was impressive from the Bulldogs too because they had most of their top liners out. And I know the Tigers had most of theirs out as well, though Lachlan Galvin did play for them. So I thought the Bulldogs were good. I think Corey Parker's got a point about that playing these trial games. They should be played in regional areas because people in regional areas would embrace them. They would embrace the trials. They would go, we've got NRL football in our town, or out in country towns or wherever. That's where these games should be played.
100%.
Corey Parker's got a point there.
I really agree with it. I think just take them all out just for the hell of it.
We shouldn't be holding up trial games for bunker decisions and captain's challenges.
Take them out
it's
to
just
those
nonsense.
take them out to those regional areas and make them more exciting without the captain's challenges and bunker, and then they'll get more people to the matches.
Yeah.
I could totally agree. I'm sure we'll have the conversation again next year.
It'll be an every year thing, won't it?
And we discussed this with Mitchell Pearce. Matty Johns suggested that Dylan Brown isn't worth the money being offered by the Knights. Matty Johns is going to coach the Knights, so what he has to say probably should hold.
It's pretty important.
We copped some mad flack on the internet about our comments about the Knights not going well, and who was the guy, the player from Melbourne that chose to stay at Melbourne?
Could that have been Jonah Pezzett?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. Oh my God, Knights fans went crazy. We've made the finals 4 times out of the past 5 years. Kalyn Ponga, blah blah.
Yeah, I think I remember the comments you're talking about, and that they might have done that, but whenever they make the finals, they just scrape in, and they never do anything in the finals. And if you go back longer, like say, if they have made it. Say it is 4 times, I don't have it right in front of me, but say it is 4 times in the last 5 years they've made the finals, right? They've only just scraped in each time. But if you go back 10 or 11 years, in the 5 or 6 years before that period, they didn't even get close. They were finishing in the bottom 4 each year.
It's 4 times in the past 5 years. This is one of those things where, Adam Blair won 50% of his games, so he's equivalent to Ricky Stuart. Knights made the finals 4 times in the last 5 years. They also made the finals 4 times in the last 11 years.
That's it. That's what I was thinking of. 4 times in the last 11 years. You go back further, the record's terrible. And
also
this is
3
the thing.
wooden spoons in a row.
And this is the thing, right? Like they made the 8 last year, right? But they got beaten by the Cowboys in week 1. If you're getting knocked out in week 1, well, who cares that you made the 8? It doesn't matter. The year before, they managed to get to week 2. They scraped through that knockout final against the Raiders. I think it went to extra time.
Yeah. But
then in week 2, the Warriors pumped them in week 2. So they get to the finals, but they just scrape in when they get there.
And
what's the point of that?
The whole thing
what's
about
the point?
Kalyn Ponga and how he does it. He isn't a waste of money. Yeah, he's not a waste of money. But the point was the Knights have to pay overs to get players. They do because they've only made the finals 4 times in 11 years.
That's the thing. And I think in that clip you're talking about, I think I said something like, they don't make the finals very often. Yeah. Well, they don't.
Yeah, exactly. It's true.
I think that's how I phrased it, and I copped some heat for it. But that's all right.
Yeah,
that's
because
okay.
it's the internet. Internet
that's
people are stupid.
Yeah.
Dylan Brown certainly isn't worth $1.2 million, according to Matty Johns.
No.
And, we talked about with Mitchell Pearce last week, and Todd Carney stitching him up in their podcast. If Dylan Brown's worth $1.2 million, then Nathan Cleary's worth 2.8.
Well, that's right. And the quotes from Matty Johns, he's talking about the $1.2 million a year that you're talking about. He says that's Munster money. That's what Matty Johns says. And then he says, I looked at Dylan last week and I thought, particularly in the first half, he looked really good and I was impressed by it. But there were periods in the game where he still disappeared. This is what Matty Johns said about Dylan Brown. And then he says, I thought it was probably symbolic of his football, given there were periods in the game where they were under the pump a little bit and he did disappear. If you're going to pay someone that sort of money, that sort of contract is Cameron Munster at his peak.
Yeah.
So exactly. Matty Johns has got a point there, and you sort of think with Dylan Brown, is this sort of a Ben Hunt at the Dragons scenario all over again in terms of paying this half huge money but not delivering their results? In 2023 they finished 10th. In 2024 they finished 15th. They were a part of Spoon Bowl last year. This is the thing. Is this really the player who gets your team into the top 4?
Well, it's the conversation between Carney and Pearcey was basically that, right? Todd Carney asked Mitchell Pearce, is Dylan Brown worth $1.2 million? And Mitchell Pearce didn't want to answer, and he gave a very reportery politician type response that was, he's worth what a team will pay him and blah, 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 because, Mitchell Pearce has obviously had his media training, and Carney then laughed at him and said, well, if he's worth 1.2, then Nathan Cleary's worth 2.8. I think, never a truer word was spoken. But the simple fact is, because the Knights have only made the finals 4 times in the past 11 years, they have an over-reliance on Kalyn Ponga. And despite what Knights fans want to think, 2 years ago, Adam O'Brien's obituary was written. He was getting sacked.
Then they went on that 10 wins in a row.
Kalyn Ponga went on 10 wins in a row.
Yeah, Kalyn Ponga should get a cut of Adam O'Brien's contract.
Yeah. Last year, they were up and down all season, and they just scraped in the finals and got knocked out. That's a fact. Adam O'Brien was close to getting fired last year as well. This year, there's the rumours that Matty Johns has been approached about coaching a team. What other coach is in danger? In all of the league right now, what other coach would you think is in danger? The most danger? I'd say Adam O'Brien is odds-on favourite to lose his job if the Knights don't go well.
Yeah, if they don't make the 8, I think he'll go.
Yeah, he could get... If they go on a losing streak at the beginning of the year, I have no doubt he'll get sacked in the middle of the year.
Yeah.
Right? And if they're having to pay Dylan Brown, and Dylan Brown is a good player, he just goes missing sometimes. If they're having to pay Dylan Brown $1.2 million, that means he's worth... the same as Cameron Munster, the same as Jerome Luai, the same as Nathan Cleary, the same as Kalyn Ponga, the same as Daly Cherry Evans. Like, he's in that $1 million club. Who's the other one? Tom Trbojevic. Is Dylan Brown a $1 million player of that calibre? If he is, then Nathan Cleary is worth $2.8 million. Panthers have got a mad deal. Tigers have got a mad deal on Jerome Luai.
But this is the thing. Jerome Luai's won the last 4 premierships in a row.
And State of Origins as well.
Yeah. And Cameron Munster, the Storm are, they're always... If they don't win the minor premiership each year, they go very close. They were in the grand final last year. They were the last team to win a premiership in 2020 before Penrith have gone on this 4-in-a-row premiership winning run. So the Cameron Munster, Jerome Luai types, they're thereabouts. They're in grand finals. They're winning premierships. So there's no way that Dylan Brown should be paid the same money as players like Luai or Munster.
But on the flip side, if the Knights want Dylan Brown and they have to pay him that much money to go there, that shows the issue with the Knights. They have to pay overs. Dylan Brown is a 7'8", 50, at the end of Ben Hunt's been the $1 million man at the Dragons for so many years, but when he was released and let go, suddenly he was only on $850. Go figure.
That's the thing. Dylan Brown's a decent player, but he's just not worth $1.2 million a year. If you got him for like $700,000 a year, you'd go, yeah, okay.
If he's a $700,000, $800,000 player when you compare everyone across a flat line. But the Knights need to pay overs for $700,000 players.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You'd think they would have learned from what's happened with Kalyn Ponga. They've got too much money tied up in Kalyn Ponga. And because of that, they're not able to recruit properly in other areas. And that's why whenever they make the 8, they only just scrape in and don't do anything when they get there. I think we've talked about it before. If you're not making the top 4, well, who really cares? Who really cares if you finish 5 to 8? Because 5 to 8 are not going to win the comp. They're walking the tightrope of elimination football every week in the finals, and they've got to contend with the top 4 teams. You're not winning the comp if you're finishing 5 to 8. If you finish 5 to 8 and you're losing in week 1 or week 2 of the finals, well, who cares about that? You're not really contending for the premiership. There's no real difference between that and finishing outside the 8 altogether. So this is the thing. Newcastle are never going to dig themselves out of this hole that they're in if they keep paying overs for certain players. Because if they pay overs for Dylan Brown, well, that means they can't recruit in other areas. And that's recruitment they need to do if they're going to get up into those top 4 positions.
Exactly. Matty Johns will sort it out when he starts coaching them next year.
He'd be mad to do it, wouldn't he?
No,
that's the thing. I think he's off contract with Fox, but just because he's off contract, that doesn't mean that he's not going to be renewed. I'd be very surprised if he does end up coaching Newcastle.
No, I don't think there's any chance. In the Parramatta trial game, whatever game it was, there was a unsavoury occurrence after the game. So Zac Lomax didn't play. He was giving an interview to a reporter on the sideline, and Joe Ofahengaue thought it would be a good idea to go over and pull his pants down, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a bit silly, isn't it? It's just a bit, it's not the crime of the century. We're not going to blow it up into something it's not. He still had his...
But what was
I think
thinking?
He still had his underpants on, thankfully.
What was he thinking?
Yeah, it's just stupid, It's a female reporter, and that's the thing, that there's kids in the crowd and everything. Thankfully, it didn't show up on the live coverage.
From what are they called? A person's phone.
Yeah. So, look, it's not the crime of the century, but it's just a bit silly. And look, Eloise Sawyer's a very good presenter as well. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but it's just a silly thing that didn't need to happen. Just silly from Joe Ofahengaue, just unnecessary.
Yeah, it's like I seriously, you just got to think, what was he thinking? In what realm of anything, as a professional, an adult professional football player, do you run over and pull the pants down of a guy getting interviewed on the sideline? What thought process went through his head?
Yeah, and doesn't it annoy you how when things like this happen, the club will trot out this PR lines like, "Oh yeah, he'll undertake education and training," and you just roll your eyes at that. It's just common sense.
He doesn't need education. He just needs to be asked, "What the hell were you thinking?"
It's just common sense.
And when he doesn't answer, don't do that again, idiot.
It's just, you don't dack your teammate when they're being interviewed by anybody really. And especially not when they're being interviewed by a female reporter, and not when there's kids in the crowd as well. Like, what if he had dacked him completely? What if he was
freeballing, going commando?
That's the thing. I mean, you'd hope that wasn't happening, but it could have been happening. And if that had have happened, well, all hell would have broken loose, and this would have been a much bigger story if that had been the case.
What was he thinking?
Madness.
Yeah, but it's all over now. The NRL's glossed over it. The club's glossed over it. It's done. And I think just because he was wearing knickers.
yeah, 100%. Again, it's not the crime of the century, but
it's just.
I think he's apologised to Eloise Sawyer, as he should have done.
Yeah, absolutely.
But this is just a moment of stupidity.
It's so far beyond, really, when you think about it, how stupid it is. Not like you said, it's not the crime of the century, but how stupid it is. Because you take those steps, all right, so he ducks him in the changing room. That must be just a game that they play. Ducks him at training when there's no cameras around or interviews or anything like that. I mean, there might be media there, but, it might be just a game they're playing. Maybe he does it on the sideline when Zac Lomax is just standing there watching the game. But then the most stupid one is while he's being interviewed by a reporter. Yeah,
100%. And look, to be honest, I've here and there I've worked with Eloise Sawyer at Fox, and I don't know her all that well. I know her, but I think she's one of the better reporters going around as well. And look, she's a complete professional, and she doesn't deserve that. But I'm sure she'd move on from it pretty quickly. She wouldn't dwell on it. I'm sure she accepted the apology and she would move on from it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. The Tigers are always in our news.
Yes, they are. And
now they've their ex-player, yeah, he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone to the Panthers. Yep.
The Panthers, going from the Tigers to the Panthers, Isaiah Papali'i has said his career stalled at the Tigers. My brother in Christ, everyone's does.
Yeah. The quote from Isaiah Papali'i is, "I had a few good years a few years back, and then I kind of plateaued or just didn't really progress as a player." Then he says, then the opportunity came to come here, talking about Penrith, where I would be able to grow and learn off the coaches, and the players around me would make me better. I think reflecting on it, it is a little bit frustrating that I didn't develop more. He talks about his time with the Tigers. And yeah, if you look at his numbers from the Tigers, he averaged just 89 metres a game last year, down from 137 in 2021. So he's gone on the decline there. He had 78 more tackle busts 4 years ago as well, albeit in 9 more games. But I think it's a bit of a cop-out from Isaiah Papali'i. I mean, you know, it's on. He wasn't aiming up. Don't just blame it on the Tigers. It's on him as well. You know what I mean? Like, you got to take responsibility for your own individual performance as well. And it's easy now to just go to Penrith and then go, oh, it's because of the Tigers that I didn't play well. Well, I mean, he could have... That's on him, averaged just 89 metres a game. He could have taken more carries than that if he wanted to.
I think all of the fighters, forwards average 89 metres a game at the Tigers. So, when they don't have the ball, you know, they never have the ball.
I know they have less ball, but I just think... You know what I mean? I just think... Oh, you know, just blame it on... What he's just blaming it all on the club, is he that he had a poor season last year? I mean, you know, it's a bit of a cheap shot.
So that's the thing with the Tigers, right? Players, coaches, everyone leaves and says, yeah, I got the Tigers slowed me down, the Tigers weren't good. And it's true, the Tigers aren't good. And we've discussed it so many times, like, what is their problem? The players, like I've said, I believe it's the off-season backstabbing between Wests and the Tigers. And the players and coaches and everyone will say, we don't let that stuff affect us, but it definitely does. So if you want to have a better career at the Tigers, don't let that stuff affect you and actually, like, play well. Yeah,
well, that's right. And look, hopefully he gets his career back on track. He'll be part of a new left edge at Penrith that'll likely have Paul Alamotti on the wing, Casey McLean at centre, a new recruit, Blaze Taulagi at 5'8", of course, replacing Jerome Luai there, alongside Nathan Cleary.
No matter who the Panthers lose, they were gonna suck after Kikau left. Kikau and Burton and all them left. Won another premiership. They were gonna suck whenever left after that one. They won another premiership. They were gonna suck after.
Yeah, that's where it's hard to tip against them for winning it again, isn't it?
Yeah, no, they could go 5 in a row because it doesn't matter who they lose, it's who they gain and what they get out of those players that they do gain. This is not like... Panthers aren't like, you know, the bull crap that people say about Wayne Bennett and that the Broncos winning all those premierships and he just had the team. You know, Panthers are more like Melbourne in that whoever comes in just does the exact job that the guy they replaced left. So Blaze Taulagi is a new 5'8". He's going to do exactly what Jerome Luai did. Even when they're different players that they replace them with, they just come in and do the same thing. And so Isaiah Papali'i is going to have the season of his career at the Panthers because they all do. And I don't see it ending anytime soon. That's the thing. As long as Nathan Cleary's there, as long as Dylan Edwards is there, you know, their core guys are there. I mentioned Wayne Bennett at the Broncos. Kevin Walters is still claiming for some of the improvements at the Broncos. Dude, if I was Kevin Walters, I would abandon the Broncos altogether and write them off.
Seriously, yeah, he's had a bit of a dig at them. He was saying. He's talking about, Kevin Walters was talking about, he felt the need to front the media the day after the announcement was made that he was gone from the Broncos. And these are some quotes from him. He says, I wanted to stand up in front of everyone and let them know I was leaving. And then he says, that's why I did it. I did it because I want to own what happened and accept responsibility that I was moving on. That's fair enough. But then he says, when I got into the building to begin the job, he's talking about when he started as coach of the Broncos, I had to find my own shirt to get into the building and get a photo compared to where they are now. So he's sort of it seems like he's having like a bit of a dig at the lack of professionalism at the Broncos when he first started at the club. It sounds
I don't want to accuse Kevin Walters of porky pies, but that just doesn't sound, you know, like reality. Maybe, you know, one of the things with Kevin Walters, the massive criticisms from the ex-staff players, everyone, was his lack of communication skills. I've given communication seminars to businesses, and I've explained to people that no matter where I've worked in my entire life, whether I've worked for a place with two employees or 2,000 employees, the number one complaint from all employees about the business when you do surveys is communication is bad. But people don't realise communication is a two-way street. And I say that, what I reckon, like my belief is what probably happened is Kevin Walters didn't ask anyone, where can I get a shirt?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Because, you can't always believe it when people say communication is bad.
Yeah.
But, one of the reasons Kevin Walters got sacked was because communication was bad. And it's the Broncos, a highly professional club, right? If it was the Tigers or Manly when Trent Barrett was there and had to bring his own lawn furniture over to the club, I would believe it.
Yeah.
100%. But Trent Barrett probably did have to go and find a shirt. But at the Broncos, come on.
Yeah, and don't you think, I tend to think, he said this on a podcast, I think if it had been in his new job again of being a commentator with Fox League, I don't think he would have said this. I think it's more the relaxed setting of being on a podcast. It's like we've talked about a few times. You can sort of fake it for about an hour on the podcast, but then after that, sort of your true feelings come out a bit, and you can't fake it for any longer than that. And I think that might be at play here. I think he was maybe able to fake it for a while, but then after a while he's maybe forgotten that he was actually on a podcast and his true feelings have come out there. I don't think he would have made these comments if he was speaking in his TV gig. No. I think in a TV gig you're probably a lot more guarded with what you're saying because, you're not on it for as long. And but with a podcast, it's you're not able to maintain the sort of the BS, should I say, for a long period of time. In the TV gig, there's cameras everywhere. There's producers off to the side. There's cameramen. Yeah, in a podcast, it's usually just a couple of microphones, a dude in a room, and a camera off to the side. That's it. So you forget. In TV, when you're in an ad break, and you can say more in an ad break. Whereas a podcast, it's just you just keep going for over an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is.
And, that's it for Rugby League. There's only 9 more days till the season starts. 10 more days?
Yeah, 10 more days. That's Sunday our time.
And
Sunday week our time.
This week we'll get up mine, Dan's, and we're going to ask Piercy for his top, what he thinks the 16th. The ladder will be at the end of the year for Vic, so we can compare it again next year. Over to tennis, and my mortal enemy Jannik Sinner has reached an agreement with WADA and will serve a 3-month ban from yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, it's February 9 until May 4. Very convenient, isn't it?
Yeah, so he'll be able to come on for the US Open.
French Open. And it's even more convenient than that. It seems very convenient that he's able to come back from the French Open. Even more convenient is that the ban ends only a few days before the Italian Open starts, and that's a lead-in event to the French Open. So I did an article on our website yesterday, and in it I was talking about how, it's almost as if Jannik Sinner picked the dates himself for the suspension, and given that this ban was reached via a settlement with WADA, how do you come to a settlement over a positive doping tests? How does that work? And that's one big criticism of this whole process. They were meant to have a hearing in April, but they've reached a settlement before that with WADA that's come to this 3-month ban.
It's absolutely ridiculous. They 3-month bans are usually reserved for self-reporting. I've talked about Khalil Roundtree self-reporting a tainted supplement, and he got a 3-month ban. In combat sports, I talked about this before, the longer it drags out, the less likely they are to do about the titles he won. In combat sports, Brock Lesnar famously fought Mark Hunt and then failed his test, and Mark Hunt ended up suing the UFC and losing. John Jones fought Daniel Cormier and ended up failing his drugs test. You know what happens? They get deemed as no contests. It means no one won, no one lost. Yeah. Brock Lesnar and John Jones won those fights because they were on drugs and they were deemed no contest. They lost their prize money, or their I think their win money, because in the UFC it's show and win, which is a bit screwed up, but show and win. That's what in reality that's what it should be. If you're going to do a 3-month ban, I don't care if he gets to play. They should go back to when he popped, which was all the way back in March last year, and he won the US Open in that 3.
So this is where my. So I did an article, as I said, on our website yesterday. Now, right, those 2 positive tests occurred in March last year. It was around the Indian Wells Masters event last year, right? And so what happened was, it wasn't revealed publicly that he tested positive until August last year, and that was only, I think it was only 6 days before the US Open started, right? And what I said in the article was, well, why didn't WADA come in and even if you're happy with the 3-month ban, right? Why didn't WADA come in and ban him there and then, on the 20th of August, and then he wouldn't have played in that US Open? And he won that US Open, and as I said, he beat Taylor Fritz, an American who's only ever played in one major final in that Grand Slam. How would he be feeling about this? And so that's the thing. And some people might say to that, some people might go, oh yeah, but he still needed to have a hearing. No. Remember, this only came out in August. This was 5 months after the positive test took place. And I went back and had a look at the statement from the ITIA. A hearing was already held. It says, this is a line from that statement from the ITIA. A hearing was convened at Sport Resolutions on 15 August 2024, from which the independent tribunal determined a finding of no fault or negligence applied in the case, resulting in no period of ineligibility. So that's the thing. And another line, a thorough investigation by the ITIA followed, including multiple in-depth interviews with Sinner and their support team, all of whom cooperated fully with the process. All right, so all of that had already been done. There was no need for any more hearings after that. So as soon as it comes out, WADA should have stepped in and gone, right, 3 months ban, and then he doesn't play in the US Open. Or even if you go, all right, even if the ban came into effect in November, say, all right, well, then he doesn't play in the Australian Open and he doesn't win the Australian Open. So, you know what I mean? How could he be allowed to go and play in 2 straight majors after testing positive? He's allowed to play in 2 straight majors and he wins both the majors, and then they wait till after the Australian Open to ban him for 3 months so that he's back for the French Open?
The way it works in real sports that do it properly is they make the decision there and then, right? Yeah. So they test positive, like I said. So Mark Hunt tests positive, no contest. Mark Hunt can then go and have a hearing and appeal. Mark Hunt tests positive and he's banned for... No, sorry, not Mark Hunt. Mark Hunt never tests positive. Brock Lesnar tests positive. Fight is deemed a no contest and he's suspended for 2 years or whatever. Okay? Then he can have a hearing to appeal. John Jones tests positive. Fight is declared a no contest. He's suspended for 2 years or whatever it was. I actually ended up being... I think it ended up being hardly any time. Then he has a hearing to appeal and can get it reduced. That's the reality of it. Jannik Sinner, when he tested positive in March, should have been... They should have no contests. I mean, I know it's harder in tennis because you have all these rankings and all that and points and all that kind of stuff. Whatever, he only tested positive because he played in something and they tested him, whether it was one of those minors or APTP tours or whatever. I was explaining how tennis works to one of our guys, one of our employees the other day, and he was just like, this is too hard. Women is easy, men is complex, right? But suspension happens then, the results are reversed or deemed as not equal. He doesn't get the points, his opponent doesn't get the points, the ranking points, and then he's suspended from him. Then he can do his hearings, right? And if it ends up he's guilty, they can reverse the no contest.
And that's the thing, in this case, the hearing had already taken place because it was 5 months. As I said, it came out publicly 5 months after the positive test. So the hearing had already taken place. The interviews with him and his team, the investigation had already been completed. So there was no reason why WADA couldn't have come in and just given the ban there in that time.
It's beyond ridiculous.
And I mentioned this in the article. These ridiculous quotes from this WADA's General Counsel, Ross Wenzel. He was unhappy with the accusations that, the ban was very convenient for Sinner, coming back just before the Italian Open, let alone the French Open. And this is what Wenzel says. He says, once you've reached an agreement, what you can't do is then say, but we're about to have this apply from 2 months in the future for a period of 3 months. He says it must come into effect quickly. Of course, once the deal is done, it's important that it is executed and it is made public for reasons of transparency. The sanctions that we impose, and the code even says this, they're blind to the calendar. He refers to a doping ban as an agreement or a deal. What is this? Is Sinner buying a house or a car or what? Investing in a business or something? This is these are positive doping tests.
It's beyond ridiculous. Tennis is a joke when it comes to...
And he says, the agreement, he puts it as an agreement, and he says, it must come into effect quickly. What? It took them 6 months. It's hardly come into effect quickly.
Yeah, quickly.
What's this guy talking about?
No, it doesn't make any sense. It's absolutely ridiculous. That compounded with like the Halep ban and the Swiatek nonsense, it just shows tennis doesn't know what they're doing.
So that tournament now, the 2024 US Open, well, that's got an asterisk next to it.
Absolutely.
And you'd have to think, I think Jannik Sinner, and we might have talked about it at the time, but I think he would have been better off if it had come out straight away in March of last year. Straight away it comes out, and say they gave him a 12-month ban and they stripped him of his Australian Open from 2024. I think he would have been better off under that scenario over the long term. Because then at least like you would have said and I would have said, well, he's done his time, right? He's got the punishment.
And he never pops again.
Yeah, he's done his time. But now people are just going to be thinking, oh, well, this is the guy who got around proper punishment for his doping ban, and this is going to dog him for the rest of his career.
And that's what I mean. Like, you combine it with like the Halep. It was Halep who got the ridiculous 18-month ban that ended up only being 9 months or after she'd already served 18, right?
Yeah, I think it was originally going to be a 4-year ban, but what happened was after 18 months of her not playing, she got it reduced to 9 months. Yeah. So it was a 9-month ban, but it was really 18 months because...
And it was Swiatek who got...
Only a 1-month ban.
Yeah, 1 month ban.
It's ridiculous.
And, when you add compound that on the Jannik Sinner nonsense, yes, it does speak a lot to Jannik Sinner. For the rest of his life now, to me, and a lot of people who follow sports, he's just John Jones. John Jones can't be the GOAT, even though he's undefeated, even though he's lost once, because you don't know how many times he took drugs. And there's so much nonsense around it, you just cannot definitively say that he learned his lesson. Unlike someone like Khalil Roundtree, who's self-reported, took his ban, and you just believe now that Khalil Roundtree is a good guy. Yeah. So you believe all of his fights are all good, right? Yeah. But with Jannik Sinner, because of the nonsense around it, combined with all of that tennis nonsense as a whole, you just go, bro, that guy's probably on all the steroids all the time. Like he could very well be. And it's just because he has a lot of money and a good lawyer, he can overcome the nonsense. Yeah, you mentioned that, and Novak Djokovic pointed that out. Novak Djokovic said, and I quote, "It seems like it appears that you can almost affect the outcome if you're a top player, if you have access to the top lawyers." Yeah, that's a quote from Novak Djokovic. And the thing is, we've talked about, well, if he had been banned from just before the US Open, obviously he doesn't play in that US Open that he won. But say even if you're happy with the 3-month ban, right, so say he's banned from August to November, well, that would have affected his preparation for the Australian Open this year that he's just won as well. So you know what I mean? You could argue that, well, that's tarnished as well, because if he doesn't play for those 3 months, he doesn't get the proper lead into the Australian Open, and that may have affected his performance there, and he doesn't win that as well. So you could argue that these last 2 majors are tainted, and he's gonna have to live with that. I put a star next to all of everything he wins. So even that one that he won before the positive test. Yeah, because you don't know because of the nonsense around it and his ability to manipulate the system. How do you know he didn't manipulate the system then? Yeah. All it says to me, obviously I have no evidence and I'm not making accusations, but in my mind, the way I believe it now is he's always on steroids. He stuffed up his cycle, and he got popped. And then he paid someone to take the fall. He's a massage guy. Probably gives him $1 million a year for the rest of his life or something. Again, not saying that's what happens. That's just in my head now. Speaking of Novak Djokovic, so he's back to full health. Yeah. It's a devastating injury that made him withdraw from the Australian Open, wasting everyone's money, ensuring that no one could get refunds because the match started. Yeah. Took no medical timeouts. Yeah. And he's back to playing, and he playing at the Qatar Open. Yeah, he lost 7-6, 6-2 to Matteo Berrettini in the second round of the Qatar Open. But this is not even a month after he pulled out of that Australian Open semi-final against Alexander Zverev, just 1 set into it. As you say, took no medical timeouts, made no effort to stick it out and see how he went in that match, just bailed after 1 set. And I did another article about this on our website, but you sort of look at it and you go, as you say, if the injury isn't a serious one, well, surely at least he would have had 1 medical timeout before, in an attempt to treat the injury before deciding to pull the pin on it. Why wasn't there any sort of medical timeout?
retiring from a match, that's supposed to be an absolute last resort. And, to just bail after a set without taking any sort of treatment for an injury that's turned out to not be very serious at all.
Well,
gee, I tell you what, that's very sus. As Tony Nadal pointed out at the time, and especially in the semi-finals of a Grand Slam as well. It's not like he was playing in the first round of the Delray Beach Open or something.
Yeah, and if you remember, we went through that whole, we looked it up, how they get refunds. If he hadn't have played, if he had pulled out before, all those people would have at least got refunds for the tickets. But the fact the match started, it's no refund.
Yeah, and what was also bizarre was, according to reports, he suffered that injury late in the first set of his quarterfinal against Carlos Alcaraz. He lost the first set against Alcaraz and then went on to win the next 3 sets. How do you win 3 sets in a row against a player of the caliber of Alcaraz in a Grand Slam quarterfinal if you've got a serious sort of injury? How does that stack up?
It's so bizarre. I don't know what the tennis is. Rapidly becoming some kind of conspiracy theorist's wet dream.
I'll tell you what, tennis it's a bit of a circus, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like the
really,
Donald Trump of sports, isn't it?
Honestly, I'm going to start following TikTok flat earthers and their tennis theories that's run by reptilians. Something like that. I swear to God, that's where it's going because there's just so much weirdness in it. Things like that just don't make any sense. French Open starts in 2 months. I wonder if Novak Djokovic will play. 2 months? 3 months?
It's usually late May, I think. So, we've got about 3 months to go.
I don't know what day, week, or year it is.
Yeah, don't worry. Jannik Sinner will be back before then, everybody. His ban conveniently finishes before the French Open.
Over to cricket. Australia got pumped by Sri Lanka, and that's all we'll talk about that. Meanwhile, the ICC Champions Trophy started last night as well.
It did,
it was
pretty sure New Zealand beat Pakistan. Yeah.
It's in Pakistan except for the India games, which are in India. Mm-hmm. New Zealand won by 60 runs. Make sure you log on to SmartB and click on the Smart Play logo. Mm-hmm. We've got all the ICC Champions Trophy. I came second in one of the matches last night. Pick your team, stick under the salary cap, score the most points. It was really difficult to pick a team or two because I don't know any of the Pakistani players or the New Zealand ones.
Yeah.
But there has been the controversy about Matt Kuhnemann.
Yes.
And his chucking action, bowling action.
Yes.
And he's had been tested now.
Yes. Got put through intensive tests on his bowling action in Brisbane over the weekend, Matthew Kuhnemann. That was just a week after he was reported during Australia's 2-0 Test series win in Sri Lanka. Kuhnemann's now completed tests on his suspect action. And, in another article, I said that, isn't it a bit rich that he was reported for a suspect bowling action against Sri Lanka of all teams, given that, Matthias Muralitharan was allowed to continue playing with a suspect action for his whole career, and he became the all-time leading Test wicket taker with 800 Test wickets. Under that cloud of having a suspect action, and now Matthew Kuhnemann's being put through the ringer, has to go through all this testing. And we might remember that the ICC adjusted the rules to suit Muralitharan as well back in the day. At the time, you weren't allowed to extend your elbow more than 5 degrees. They found that Muralitharan extended his by 14 degrees, so they just adjusted the rules to say, you can extend it up to 15 degrees. I have to say, I just found it rich. I thought against Sri Lanka of all teams for this to happen, given that the ICC were weak and allowed Muralitharan to get away with a suspect action for his whole career.
I don't know if the guy chucks. We'll see what the results are, but it's quite funny that Sri Lanka are the whiners. Is it?
To be fair, I think he's been reported by. It's obviously the ICC have come in and also it was reported by match officials, and the ICC are the ones carrying out the tests. But I just find it's rich that they're carrying out tests on Kuhnemann, given that they allowed everything to slide with Murali for so long.
Is it irony?
Yeah, exactly. And I think Kuhnemann just checking how many. Yeah, he had a great series there against Sri Lanka. Took 16 wickets across the 2 tests. But he's only played 5 tests in his career, Kuhnemann, at 28. And Muralitharan was allowed to get away with having a suspect action for his whole career. To the point where the ICC, as I said, they changed the rules to suit him. And I mentioned in the article that, he's taken a lot. He took more wickets than Shane Warne, Muralitharan. He finished up with 800 test wickets. Warne finished up with 708. But when you get to things like honours, like Wisden named their 5 cricketers of last century, Warne was one of the 5 Wisden cricketers of the century, Muralitharan was overlooked. Richie Benaud, the great Richie Benaud, the iconic cricket commentator, named his all-time World 11 and had Shane Warne in his team and didn't have Muralitharan in his team. And I think this is in part certainly because of the controversy over Muralitharan's action.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because Muralitharan has better stats than Warne. But in this case, you sort of look past that, don't you, because of the question marks over Muralitharan's
exactly.
action. Yeah.
Well, if Kuhnemann goes on to bowl out 800 people, he'll also have the same issue. Over to AFL, mentioned AFL before and St Kilda's injury issue, but people are calling for Sam Newman to have his Hall of Fame status removed after he interviewed 2 known neo-Nazis on his podcast. He's been accused of platforming and all that nonsense, current kind of thing. This is the final straw for Sam Newman, I don't know how many straws he's been given. It's like, come on, guys.
But this is the thing. Like, I mean, he challenged their belief systems on the podcast. Like, just because you get people on your podcast, does that really mean you're endorsing everything they're saying?
Yeah, that's the nonsense thing, right? So
it's similar to the Margaret Court situation in tennis, isn't it? Just because she has some controversial religious views and she makes homophobic comments, does that mean that she should be wiped as a tennis legend? Well, it's the same sort of argument with Sam Newman, isn't it? Just because he's invited some neo-Nazis on his podcast, and of course we don't agree with their views, of course we don't. But it's sort of like, what, he's 79 years old, what, you're going to go back and strip his Hall of Fame status just because he gets a couple of neo-Nazis on his podcast? It does depend
on what the Hall of Fame thing is. Like, if the Hall of Fame is for on-field and on-field achievements and off-field beliefs, then yeah. But if it's just for on-field achievements, and who cares? Like, the whole thing about, like, platforming, and the news is platforming it. We are now platforming these 2 neo-Nazi guys by talking about it, but we don't get criticism, and all the news doesn't get criticism. You have fact-checkers that check everything that those guys say. If you ever listen to the neo-Nazi podcasts, like I think I mentioned before, I listened to David Duke on Jake Matthews' podcast. Hard listen. Took me many, things just because the nonsense that they say, but I truly believe you have to listen to people with opposing views to actually understand their opposing views, to be able to argue them properly. So often I have discussions with people who post information, like, anti-Trump people especially. I'm not a pro-Trump person, despite the belief that people have that I am. People post anti-Trump stuff, and I have to say to them, that's not what he said. Did you actually listen to it? And they'll say, I don't listen to him because I don't want to give him, any ear time or whatever, like any air time. It's like, well, then how do you argue against it? You have to actually platform these people. Yeah. Ira Glasser is one of the most famous civil liberties activists ever to exist. There's a great documentary about him, Mighty Ira. He was brought onto Jerry Springer after some neo-Nazis wanted to do a protest at gathering or whatever at his university, and he was brought on to Jerry Springer, and we all know what Jerry Springer was. To argue with them, and he just had a conversation with them, and the Jerry Springer producers were apparently really upset with him because he didn't argue with them. In the end, I've listened to an interview with him, he ended up becoming friends with one of them, and they still talk today at the time of the podcast, right? They don't believe the same thing. He's a Jewish guy, but this neo-Nazi is his friend. Yeah. And he's one of the things he always says is you don't counter bad speech with censorship, you counter bad speech with good speech. Mm. Sam Newman challenged their stupid beliefs. You listen to these neo-Nazi podcasts, and it's really funny because they get all the... it's funny to listen to if you understand. I think Nick Fuentes is the most famous one because he's Kanye West's presidential chief of staff. Yeah. They will say things with authority that sound true. Mm. Okay? and the facts will be slightly distorted to make them worse.
So it's sort of like Andrew Tate in a way.
Yeah, like one of
the
classic ones that neo-Nazis and these kind of guys and anti-Jew people always talk about is how Israel is the number one receiver of foreign aid from America. Which sounds bad. Why does Israel need foreign aid from America, right? And, because the majority, like these are Australian ones, but the majority of the most famous ones are American, and they use that like kind of thing to swing people over to their side. Like, oh, America's wasting so much money on Israel and stuff like that. So and they say it with authority like it's a fact. And the actuality of it is Israel is the third highest receiver of foreign aid from America, or something like that. Second, it's not first. It was at some point first, but it's not first anymore, and all that kind of thing. And the spending is actually justified in certain ways. But America sends billions and billions and billions of dollars all over the world for different reasons, and it actually has no indication of anything. It has no bearing on anything for what you should form your opinion about whether you'd like or dislike Israel, right? The amount of money that America sends. But they say it like it's a bad thing to convince people to get on the side. And they say it with authority. They say it with confidence. And that's why you have to listen to them and understand. One of the other things about it is, man, like, there's all these liberal people that will be calling for Sam Newman to be stripped of his Hall of Fame status because he invited neo-Nazis on their podcast. You know who all these people probably are like from the river to the sea, pro-Palestine, Israel is evil. You know who else supports Palestine? Nazis. And I'm not saying that people that support Palestine are Nazis. I'm saying this is the thing you have to understand. It's one of the big things that Jake Matthews and David Duke talked about. About how Palestine is in the right and all the neo-Nazi groups and Ku Klux Klan and American stuff support Palestine because they are so anti-Jew that they have to support Palestine. You know, this is the thing. So unless you actually listen to this nonsense, understand it, and realize the stupidity of all of it, you're just being stupid and saying, oh, he's platforming them and they shouldn't be allowed to talk. Listen to what they say, understand the truth of what they say, fact check them in your own time, and then understand that everything they say is stupid. But if you ban them, you know what happens? They form into small groups, and they're able to find more people. Actually, that's how they find more people. That's how they go to marginalised people in society, generally young men, incels and stuff like that. Marginalised people and say, we also got the platform. No one listens to us. Here is some stuff, and then those people convert to them. It's
almost like they're sort of looking for some reason to cancel Sam Newman. I mean, he's not on Channel 9 anymore. He's 79 years old, so he's retired basically. And it's like, oh, what can we pin him on? Oh yeah, we can strip him of Hall of Fame status. That's what we can do. It's like they're trying to pin him on that. And I know you mentioned the criteria before. The criteria is integrity, sportsmanship and character, but look, he's 79 years old now. He finished playing in 1980. Are we really going to go back and strip someone of Hall of Fame status, someone who finished playing in 1980, because they have people with highly controversial views on a podcast? No. Like, come on, show a bit of common sense.
Does he agree with them?
No,
that's the question that's never asked.
That's the whole problem. Just because he had them on, he challenged their belief systems.
Just because he has... The whole thing about platforming creates marginalised people and it allows them to recruit more. The best thing you can do is have these people on podcasts and challenge their beliefs and fact-check them on the spot. You know, just show how wrong they are. Like, I listened to Nick Fuentes on Just Pearly Things. That was awful because she's also a doofus.
Oh, yeah, I've listened to her a bit of that. You don't like that?
No, she's like really anti-woman. She thinks women shouldn't be allowed to vote.
Oh, well.
Yeah,
that's pretty extreme.
She's nuts. Like, but she just let him ramble and didn't fact check him because she agreed with a lot of what he said, right? But like I said, he said things like Israel gets all this foreign aid and his reasoning for it was all nonsense, and it took me like 5 minutes of like looking on the internet to find everything he said was wrong. But he said it with authority, and you need someone to fact check them on the spot. And so, like, no, actually, that's not true. This is the truth of it. What happened? Like, I think there's a brilliant Candace Owens-Joe Rogan interaction when Candace Owens was on Joe Rogan years ago, back when he was more left-leaning than centre-right now, right? And they talk about climate change, and she says, I don't believe in climate change. And he says, no, the argument is not whether climate change is real or not. The argument is whether humans are speeding up climate change. And she says, I recycle, but I don't believe in climate change. No, real scientists don't believe in climate change. And then, so, they fact check her on the spot. And young Jamie, his producer, looks up and shows a website with like 10,000 scientists agree that humans accelerate climate change. And she says, oh, that's a .com. If it was a .org, I would believe that more. She finds a new bullshit out. And so young Jamie finds a .org with 10,000 scientists. And then she says, I'd have to look into each individual one of those 10,000 scientists. And that path, shows how little authority she has on the subject. That's what you actually have to do. You don't deplatform her or remove Joe Rogan's Hall of Fame status for platforming her. You fact check her on the spot, and she goes down this path that shows her opinions come from nowhere. So it has to be .org. Well, here's one from .org. Oh, now that you show me it's from a .org, I need to check individually each one of those 10,000 scientists' qualifications to ensure that what they're saying is right. But they're 10,000 scientists, and you're not a scientist. So now, does that mean we have to check your qualifications to see what you're saying is right? Is the outcome of that conversation. It just makes her look stupid. It's talked about a lot, how stupid she looked. And she speaks really eloquently, and she's pretty intelligent and all that stuff. But the whole deplatforming and Sam Newman needs to be stripped over his Hall of Fame just because he had neo-Nazis on his podcast is nonsense. If he agreed with them, I would say, we should probably go and see if Sam Newman is okay.
Yeah, but again, this is a guy who, as I said, he retired in 1980. So to sort of be going back, I guess, looking at, how he's got some controversial guests on a podcast when he's 79 years old. And, so because of that, we're going to strip you of an honour that you earned while you were a player and you stopped playing in 1980. It just seems very far-fetched.
This is the rewriting of history in which, in America and in Australia and stuff, they tear down statues and stuff like that because they find out new things. One day they're going to come for the George Washington, the monuments, because he had slaves too.
Yeah, it's like people lose jobs for what they said on Twitter 15 years ago. Yeah. This sort of stuff.
What's his name? Kevin, the guy that is in Jumanji and stuff. I can't remember his name. Kevin Hart. He got the Oscars hosting thingy, and then because he said some homophobic stuff 15 years ago on Twitter, they stripped it. And he's like, bro, I've apologised for that 500 times.
Yeah. At some stage you have to move on. Yeah.
On to other sports. Now we have to talk about Sam Kerr. It was actually a request from Vic. He said, I'd like to see what your guys' thoughts on Sam Kerr, the whole Sam Kerr situation are. Well, I think she behaved like an idiot. There's just too much to it. There's so many hypotheticals and what ifs, and compare it to this kind of stuff. So basically, she was found not guilty of whatever charges were put against her.
Yeah, it was racially aggravated harassment of a police officer.
Yep. There's all this stuff on the internet around it that's like, if she was a man... I saw a news article that was the only reason it went so far is because she's a woman, and they target her because she's a woman. That's nonsense. I also saw people discussing, if she was a man... Was it? I like the one I repeated. If she was a white man doing the same thing to a black woman, how would it have played out? I repeated that one. But those are all hypotheticals and what ifs. And, she behaved like an idiot. I can see where the police were coming from, because my understanding of it is... Taxi driver rocks up to a police station with two drunk women vomit all over the outside of the car in a smashed window, and the taxi driver saying they won't pay. Sam Kerr starts waving her phone with her bank balance around, showing how she's a millionaire, and saying, I was in fearful, acting really drunk and belligerent. And my only hypothetical what if that I kind of get down to is, if a taxi driver with two random women rocked up to a police station in the same situation, we would never have heard about it. And I think it would have played out exactly the same. Because when you're acting like a drunken idiot and there's a not drunk taxi driver saying they vomited all over my cab, won't pay the cleaning fee and smash the window. The police are of course going to be on the side of the not drunk person and think the drunken idiots are acting like drunken idiots. And in reality, if you think about it, any civilian who saw footage of that, if it was just two random drunk ladies, they would think the same thing.
Yeah, that's right. And, Vic wants our thoughts on it. Well, my thoughts on it are she was cleared of racially aggravated harassment of a police officer and and this is a line from a report I read, it says, during the clip which was shown to the court, the Chelsea forward is heard calling the officer, quote, stupid and white. So my thoughts on it are that the comment stupid and white, in my opinion, that is racially aggravated harassment of a police officer.
Absolutely.
So I don't think that she should have been cleared, and I think she should have been found guilty of it. Those are my thoughts on the matter. And I would say that I think she probably should be stripped of the captaincy of the Matildas.
I don't know if she's ever going to play for the Matildas again anyway.
To be honest, I don't really care about that part of it. I don't care, in all honesty. But
she's 32 years old now or something.
Yeah, but 31. I mean, that's. I think that's all you got to say about it. She was cleared of racially aggravated harassment of a police officer. She called the police officer stupid and white. So she shouldn't have been cleared of it. She should have been found guilty of it.
One of the things about it was because the police impact statement came like months later, and they said, it's obvious that the policeman was just targeting her because he found out who she was or whatever. Like that's really like bullcrap. Actually, impact statements can come months later. I got bashed when I was young at a Dragons Rabbitohs game at the Charity Shield, and the police came and got my victim. The court case didn't happen for like 14 months, and the police came and got my impact statement like a few days before the court case. So, that's just the way it rolls.
Yeah.
I don't know about in England, but that's how it was here. Then I had to go waste the whole day at court where they ended up making a deal with the guy, and there wasn't ever any court case. So, yeah, that's just the way it rolls. I think she's an idiot, and she acted like an idiot, and I have no support for anyone who acts like an idiot like that. Like screaming at the police, she's just stupid and white. As I said, I like the one, and I repeated it. If she was a white male footballer screaming at a black female police officer, you're just stupid and black.
Oh yeah, I think
it'd be a whole different story.
I think there would have been all sorts of problems if that had happened.
I hate that it became a thing about you're only targeting her because she's a woman. It's not. She was targeted by the police because she was acted like a drunken belligerent idiot and started abusing the police who wouldn't listen to her. Yes, they should have listened to her, but it's hard to listen to the drunken belligerent idiots versus a taxi driver. It is. I've also been in a situation once where I was munted on a train home, and I saw a guy on the train harassing some, they were like Chinese people, flashing a badge around and demanding they give him money because he was a rail worker and they were being fined. And he wouldn't leave them alone, and I walked up to him and said, leave him alone, bro, you're not a rail worker. And then he pushed me and I pushed him and he fell over and bashed his head and blood started spraying out everywhere because it was a cut head, right? Like everywhere. And then I was taking care of him, like, oh my God, are you all right? And then the police jumped on the train at Redfern and dragged it off, and I was, like I said, I was drunk as. They straight away targeted me like I was the aggressor and idiot because I'm like the drunken idiot there. And then another guy got off the train and explained to them what happened, and then they turned it all around. But it took a calm person to explain it and turn it all around. That's just the way it is. If you're the drunken belligerent idiot, no one's going to listen to you.
Yeah, that's right. And there's another line from this report that says the pair said they had feared that the driver of the cab was kidnapping them. But the driver drove them to the police station. So, I mean, please. Oh, we thought he was kidnapping us. He's just taking you to the police station. So that line about where they thought he was kidnapping them, that doesn't cut it for me. That's a load of nonsense. All he was doing was taking them to the police station because he wasn't happy that they wouldn't pay the cleaning fee after she vomited in the cab.
Mashed the car window. And they all pull out because she's a woman and she feels in danger and she doesn't know what the guy's going to do to her and all that kind of stuff. He told her though,
And that's what happened. He took them to the police station. He didn't take them on a 3 or 4 hour drive out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
He took them to the police station.
Yeah. Exactly. And then the Super Bowl happened, and the ex-Rabbitoh Jordan Mailata, Rabbitohs claimed him. Bro, Rabbitohs fired him, but they also claimed him on social media. Won the Super Bowl, and Anthony Albanese bragged to Donald Trump about it.
Yeah, for some reason, Albanese thought that Trump would care less about Mailata being part of the Super Bowl winning team. Trump wouldn't have even cared about the American players in the team that won the Super Bowl, let alone an Australian player in the team that won the Super Bowl. Why Albanese thought that would be a great thing to tell him, we had an Australian player in the team that won the Super Bowl. Like, come on. I don't think Trump cares somehow. He also even went on to tell him about how Mailata was a South Sydney junior and that Albanese was on the board of South. As if Trump could give a stuff about that at all.
South sacked him. Stop claiming him after you sacked him because he was too big and never good enough for rugby league.
But that's the thing. Trump wouldn't even care that Mailata's a part of the Super Bowl winning team, let alone the fact that he played for some Australian rugby league club.
It was his team because the Super Bowl was Taylor Swift versus Donald Trump. Taylor Swift, that was the 49ers, Travis Kelce's team, Taylor Swift, and then Donald Trump was going for whoever won. I don't know who won. It's 48 players on a team. Bragging about one Australian when there's 47 Americans that won the Super Bowl is beyond nonsense, brother.
Yeah, it was the Philadelphia Eagles.
Eagles? Is that who it was? I don't know. I watched some of it. It was too hard to watch.
They beat Travis Kelce's team, the Kansas
that's Taylor
City
Swift's team.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift got booed. Donald Trump got cheered.
That's it.
But there's 48 players on a team, so 47 Americans, one Australian, bro. I don't think he cares.
And he also talked to him about how, he talked to him about Russell Crowe and James Packer as well. So, wow, what a good one, Albo. Well done. You're on fire.
Has he named scheduled the election yet?
Yeah, I don't even know.
I was saying the other day when interest rates got lowered, Albanese should schedule the election while these polls are up.
Yeah, well, that's just some great banter that he had, isn't it? Oh, yeah, did you know that the team that won the Super Bowl had an Australian player in it, and that Australian player used to play for the rugby league team that I'm a supporter of when he was a junior? Oh, yeah, I'm sure Trump could really give two hoots about that.
Did you know that there were 47 Americans on that team? Meanwhile, Canada, because Donald Trump threatened to impose tariffs, and everyone think it didn't work, and then Canada committed extra money to the border. But the Canadians have been booing the US national anthem during the NHL season, and or it's like some international thingy. And at the US versus Canada match, I watched it. It's so funny. 3 fights in 9 seconds.
Yeah.
It just kicks off.
Yeah.
Pre-planned, apparently.
I loved it, to be honest. It was great theatre.
Ice hockey, they're allowed to fight until they hit the ground.
Yeah.
So it's like really awesome.
I love it how they just go, go for it, sort it out, and then...
It has some super whack rules, like really crazy rules, ice hockey, around fighting. But yeah, so from the initial... I can't remember what it's called. Thingy. I used to play ice hockey. Something off. Straight away, bang, they're into it.
Yeah. Is it called because it's the puck, isn't it? Is it a puck off? I don't know what it is.
Called, man. Now I've got to look it up.
But apparently, they booed the US anthem as well, so that sort of kicked things off. That created the hostility, and then it was just on right at the start. As you said, 3 fights in the first 9 seconds in the game between the US and Canada. In the end, the Americans came out on top. They won 3-1 over Canada and secured a spot.
Face-off. It's called a face-off.
Yeah, the face-off. Yeah, that's right. And a spot in the tournament final as well. Trump said Canada should become a US state, and along with and has made threats of tariffs that have angered Canadians as well. Yeah,
well, it's so funny because I fully, in the 2016 thing, I always found Justin Trudeau to be a Twitter troll. Donald Trump would talk about how he's going to reject all the immigrants and stuff like that. And then Justin Trudeau would post on Twitter, we'll take them, even though they wouldn't. Like he just trolled Donald Trump, and I feel like Donald Trump is just trolling Justin Trudeau at this point. Like he's really just doing shit to mess with him.
Yeah, it was a Four Nations face-off that match. It was in Montreal,
it's awesome, so funny to watch. Like, it just kicks off. Like, 3 fights in 9 seconds.
I'll tell you what, it gets you in. Yeah. It gets you to somebody who's got no interest in ice hockey. That got me in, for sure. I watched it.
Yeah. So that's it for the week. Don't forget to head to Optimum CBD. What's it called? OptimumCBD.store for all your CBD needs. Must be over 18 to order. Orders over $99 get free delivery. Make sure you sign up to the 2025 SmartB tipping comps in AFL and NRL. Top tips to the round gets $100. There's some new functions coming if you want to set up your own tipping competitions like multiple jokers, custom final series, stuff like that. Even like money on the line functions. And join the Smart Play ICC Champions Trophy into cricket, and Smart Play NRL and AFL will be launching with the season as well. That's daily fantasy sports, allowing users to enter for free or buy SmartB coins to win real cash prizes. It's not a season-long fantasy system. It's every single game you can pick your team from the players playing under the salary cap. It's really, really fun. I did it for all the Big Bash League, and I won like 4,000 coins. So cool. See you next week, which we'll have to do on Thursday again because I'm on a holiday for the first 3 days next week. Yes.
So that'll be only 3 days before the NRL season starts.
And we will announce our ladders, so have your ladder ready.
Oh, yeah, I'll have that ready. Yeah, we can just do that as an item on the podcast next week.
And we'll announce Mitchell Pearce as well. All right, see you, everybody. Bye, Producer Chair, and bye, Dan.
Thanks, John. See you then. So that'll be only
from the players